Hey, welcome back, guys. This is Shah. I wanted to do a reaction to It's Complicated's most recent video, Men's Advocates. And I also wanted to share that I was on the JustPearlyThings YouTube channel. She had me on there twice, actually. Once for a call-in on her live stream, and then we also did a sit-down interview together. So if you haven't seen those yet, I'll put links to those videos in the channel. And I appreciate everyone who's subscribed from JustPearlyThings channel. Welcome over. So let's go ahead and get into this.
What do you think of all the different manosphere channels and the similarities and differences between their messages?
I think all the channels is kind of saturated. It's like it's a little too much. Need to be a little bit of balance to it.
I don't know if cash grabbers is the right term, because not everyone's exactly cashing out from it, but there's definitely a lot of people that want to attach themselves to a movement and then shout as loud as they can.
And instead of pushing that message on men, you need to let men figure out what they want to do for themselves.
What and who are they actually advocating for?
For men's rights.
They're advocating for men for sure, and some of the stuff they say is right, but they're advocating in the wrong way. They're pushing it in the wrong way. They're stealing money from these men who don't know, who have low self-esteem, who think less of themselves, and they have these people follow them and they take their money. They do make very good points about the women, and because high quality men, low quality women, bitches do be saying like, oh, she runs the world, and then cry when somebody wants to fuck them and not be with them. Bitch, you done fucked everybody already.
What's the difference between advocating for men versus blaming men?
Advocating is sticking up in a brotherhood type of fashion, I'd say. Sticking up for men is almost as if men need to be stuck up for because we're at a disadvantage, which I don't think no one needs to be stuck up for. It's just unite as one.
For the most part, I think a lot of the manosphere narratives and talking points are about dating and dealing with relationships and intersexual dynamics very specifically. I tend to think in terms of laws, especially since I used to work at the child support office. So I tend to see things through that lens. I look at stuff in the manosphere, especially concepts like high value man, and sometimes I look twice at that because I definitely don't see that as a solver of problems or a long-term solution, in the sense that yes, you can become a high value man and women will chase after you, but there are still legalities out there that, even if you're high value or low value, treat all men the same. And when I think of advocating for men, for me, the most important thing is advocating for changing laws to make the end of the marriage deal or paternity or custody and all that stuff fairer for men when they're dealing with those things. And the advice that we get from the manosphere is more so about how to build yourself up individually. It's not really applied to a collective sense of what men should be doing together or as a whole group in order to change something that's biased against them in society.
If red pill creators can't see men as victims, how can they be advocates for men?
I don't think they care about the people that they're pushing the message to at all.
Why is shaming women seen as hate while shaming men is seen as motivation?
My answer would be that is to better men and keep women in their place, actually.
How many?
The concept of victimhood is interesting because a lot of times people will, when they make criticisms of the red pill, or I watch YouTubers who criticize the red pill and manosphere and stuff because I like to get all the sides of the argument. But a lot of them will say men in the red pill are basically presenting an idea that men are victims and that just the men all see themselves as victims. And it's kind of at odds because a lot of the times red pillars and manosphere types are telling men that, hey, you're not a victim and you have a choice to change these things, and they usually recommend self-improvement. However, to some degree, which I think is interesting from this question, is that if you can't see yourself as a victim, how can you start to make change or at least accept that there's a problem? So there is this conflict between are men legitimately victims or not? But a lot of, at least more recent manosphere talking points will kind of sweep that under the rug and say, too bad, get motivated, do something about it. But in my opinion, even if you become this quote unquote high value man, you're still a high value target.
How many manosphere creators can you think of that don't lean traditional?
I believe there's more and more that are emerging, but not many off the top. The ones off the top are pretty old fashioned, if you could say.
I don't think they want traditional marriage. I just think they just want to have fun with many as women that they can.
That's one thing I always think about too, because not just red pillars, but I think everybody across the board kind of says they want a traditional this, like whether it's a woman saying they want a traditional man or even a tradcon man saying they want a traditional woman. I don't think people really want traditional people. I think everybody wants to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. The tradcon guy, I think, wants a woman that looks like a housewife, but then also, acts like a prawn star privately. And the feminists want men who are provider, good husband types, but then they also want the bad boy. The red pillars, like most men, they want to present as traditional at the very least, and become high value, make themselves into a good provider, into someone who's attractive to women in that way. But then at the same time, red pillars are not willing to invest long-term into a woman. And there are many reasons for that. Some of them, it's because they'll say women are too masculine now, or they'll say that the laws are biased towards men. The latter portion is what I'm more concerned with, the laws, and that's true. It's very dangerous. If you're going to step into the shoes of a traditional provider protector role and you are providing for the family, if one day your wife decides to, parachute out of there, the laws are going to come down on you hard, and that is the current problem. I think you can say that red pillars are very much concerned with just presenting as traditional in order to get laid. That's true. But that's also a reaction to what feminism has created in society, because, women have stepped out of their traditional roles. You can kind of look at it as the prince saving the princess, and slaying the dragon, the fairy tales and stories we all grew up with. And what feminism has done is essentially deconstructed the princess archetype or role for women. And it's been replaced. It's largely, a hole in society, but there's things in there like boss bitch and all that kind of stuff. And what happens is you have all these guys here who are looking to fulfill the prince role, but there's no princess to save, or the princess doesn't want to be saved. So men are now in this strange position of trying to figure out what a prince looks like or what a prince does in the modern or the postmodern world. So yes, men will spend time just concerning themselves with short-term gratification, but a lot of that is also a reaction to what feminism has done on the society.
If modern women were all virgins who cooked and cleaned, would you still get married under the current laws?
No, because marriage is one big scam, man. Because because once the laws and once the courts and once the judicial system gets involved, it's all about money at that point. So no, I definitely wouldn't.
I would not.
And I hate to agree with them, but it is true. When I was working at child support, there was 2 kinds of cases that crossed my desk, and it was hard for me to not notice this as a child support officer. And I'd noticed that there were guys who were paying child support and paying alimony, and that number was high, and it just seemed like, man, that's a lot of money to pay each month. Then there were guys who were just paying around the same amount of child support, but they weren't also paying alimony. And the only difference between those two was that one guy signed the state contract and the other guy didn't, but they were still both with the woman that they were with for like 3 to 5 years, 7 years. So me looking at that, I'm like, why would I sign the state contract? It's a lot easier to just pay child support if I don't also have to pay alimony and lose half my retirement, and half the house is gone, and half of a lot of other things. So to me, it was a no-brainer.
I get married under the current laws, even if either way because the current laws put men at a disadvantage, and that is the biggest blessing I think red pill's given me, without question, is exposing the marriage laws.
See, and I like that he says that. A lot of people will brush off red pill stuff and say, you know, it's just a bunch of hateful men. I mean, that's not entirely true because a lot of it is spreading awareness. You know, are there a bunch of angry men? There are, but if you've been following the red pill for a long enough time, even back in the early days of like 2012, 2013, 2014 on the forums, there's very specifically a phase after someone takes the red pill called red pill rage. And it's a accepted phenomena, and it is also accepted that it's something that men encounter but have to mature and grow past. Angry and hateful men are more dangerous when they're actually still blue-pilled and then suddenly get stabbed in the back. Those are the guys who lose their minds and do something that is incredibly terrible. Red pill guys go through the rage, but they have a place to let that steam out so then they can get past it, grow, mature as whatever a new man is evolving into in our current time, and then they can deal with that in a way that's actually less harmful. It's not easy to see that, but it's actually true. I like to listen to Coach Greg Adams, and he says that the red pill has stopped more violence against women, ironically, than anything else, because it's given men a place to go through their rage phase and then grow out of it. Where men who take the blue pill path end up through the divorce courts, can't believe what happened to them. They're the ones who snap.
So then why are they more focused on body count than changing the laws?
Superficiality and not getting to the root cause.
See, that there was someone earlier in the video who mentioned unity, and that idea of unity is very important. And it's a shame that the red pill does not have that. You know, the feminists got things done because they had unity. And a lot of these kind of splintered red pill channels are just focusing on the individual existences of each man, but not men as a collective unit. If men as a collective got together, it would be a totally different game. We would be able to change things on a very political level. Just think about this, for instance. If you look at the numbers, especially I think in the last election, more men voted for Trump than for Biden. And it's the opposite, where more women voted for Biden and less for Trump. Now, I guarantee you that the red pill has enough reach that 10% of extra guys who voted for Trump are red pillers. And if the red pill was united, we can do a election sit out and threaten the conservatives and say, hey, listen, we're going to not vote in this next election and threaten you with a failure if you do not put family law reform as an important top priority issue for you guys. And that's going to get them to listen to us. But in order to do that, we have to have red pill unity to where enough creators get together and say, hey, we all agree on this one thing. This is what we're advising men to do. But, they can continue to argue about things they disagree with. Obviously, there's different opinions, on cold approach or high value, low value, or game, or all these kinds of things that the people in the space talk about. But when it comes to getting the laws changed and acting as a political group wielding power, there needs to be some kind of leadership here to create a unification of all these red pill splinter groups. And unfortunately, we don't have that yet.
Is the biggest goal of the red pill to address the divorce problem or the incel problem?
The divorce problem, honestly, because a lot of the divorces are initiated by women, and they're not even there. And a lot of it has to do with women getting bored in relationships and marriages faster. So I think the divorce would definitely be the target in that.
A lot of these kinds of spaces sort of developed from older men going through divorces and ending up in a lonely place where they're trying to figure out what to do. And then kind of meeting up with this younger generation of guys who, you know, couldn't even get married in the first place, trying to figure out what to do. So it kind of combined both of these strains to create the space that it is today. So, you know, Red Pill has been largely more interested in dating and intersexual dynamics. So you could say it's more about getting laid, but there were also elements of guys going through divorces. And, you know, prior to all this, there was the MRA movements and all those guys concerned with laws. I think the Red Pill needs to grow to move not only into dealing with, you know, intersexual dynamics, but trying to make some change in the laws as well. Divorced men and incel men have one thing in common. They each have one vote. And if we put our votes together and we decide to make a move with it, we can make a serious impact.
There's an attempt to make it look like it is to solve the divorce problem. However, it has starkly turned into a raging overreaction to address the incel problem that has been caused by...
Look at this right here. Look at this. There's an escort ad going in the back while he's talking about the incel problem. Right here.
Raging overreaction to address the incel problem that has been caused by massive waves of feminism.
You can't plan that. That was funny. There's your answer to the incel problem right there.
Why is it when women complain, reforms are made, but when men complain, we're told to improve?
I think because the nature of reality does cater to women. Women are catered to. That's why you see less homeless women on the street. You've heard probably a lot of people say that. But women are catered to. Men are just expected to go out, get it, figure that shit out for yourself.
Aim high to quote unquote get the bag, to get the short-term relationship that isn't going to last.
If so many men today are broke and out of shape, why are they advocating for Bugattis?
Because we think the material is what adds value to our life, when really that's the top of the pyramid, when really our foundation should be at the bottom, which is getting in shape and getting dialed in mentally and spiritually.
And a lot of people, especially people my age, unfortunately, they got a lot of participation medals growing up, and so people want the gold trophy just for showing up and doing quote-unquote their best.
Everybody gets a trophy wife.
Everybody gets a trophy wife. Nobody wants to actually do the work, though. Everybody wants to get that ribbon, and the ribbon is the Bugatti and the 10 model wife or whatever that is to you, but nobody wants to eat healthy, work out, work hard, save your money, maybe invest, start a business, fail a business. You never know if you never try, but too many people want to just do the bare minimum, exist, and then get all the dopamine in the world.
There is a problem with saying average, because I say average a lot, and I like to fight for the average person. I don't think the people at the top need me to help them. But the problem also with the average is that, you know, a lot of people are out of shape and unhealthy. I mean, I think if you look at the stats, 7 out of 10 people are either, both men and women, are overweight or obese. So it's like 35, 36% are obese, and then another 30 or so percent are overweight. There's clinically obese, which is like a certain percentage of body fat, but then there's overweight. 7 out of 10 people are in one of those two categories. So when you look at average unfortunately is not doing well. And that kind of exacerbates this issue because it makes those 7 out of 10 people looking at the leftover 3 out of 10. And it's just this massive imbalance, you know. As far as, you know, getting in shape is one thing, but chasing a Bugatti or all these other things, I think is just extra. And, you know, if you get to that position, it's kind of dangerous also, because now you have to be very careful because there's going to be a lot of predators coming after you.
Why would Myron write a book called Why Women Deserve Less while sculpting men on how to provide women more?
Because Myron is selling you his product. Myron is selling you his podcast. He's selling you his videos. He's selling his books. He's a salesman. Men, all these are is the new self-help book for men. And it's not even that good.
His book definitely has some truth in it, because a lot of it has to do with the fact that, you know, that as men that you're supposed to have women respect you, and that's pretty much what the main thing of his book is about, you know, as a man.
It's interesting because I actually do have Myron's book. I did read it. And towards the end of it, he, as best as he can, provides an answer. And he discusses something called the Tom Brady gamble. And he discusses Tom Brady and all his amazing attributes. But as we know, with even Tom Brady, ended up, getting divorced. And I think more recently it came out that his wife Giselle was cheating on him with some trainer or something like that. And, this is Tom Brady, who's won all these Super Bowls and he's in the NFL and just does all these amazing things and is rich. And that guy got cheated on. So Myron calls it the Tom Brady gamble, because if you do the extra work and you get to the top 5%, you can still end up like Tom Brady. Myron's solution to this is, okay, Why Women Deserve Less is his book title. And he basically says, once you become top 5%, the women have to do all the work to carry the relationship, is basically what he prescribes to men, and say, once you flip the script of the quote unquote dating laws on women, women have to adore you. They have to chase you if they want to keep you, because you've now sculpted yourself to be this really self-improved, masculine, rich, and attractive man. But his book, doesn't address a problem, because you can only really do that with women if you don't ever really invest into them, and I'm not just talking about emotional investment. I'm also talking about very physical and real family creation investment. Like having a child with the woman is an investment into her, because you are now making yourself incredibly vulnerable to getting in trouble with the courts, to losing a lot of your wealth, especially based off how the laws are oriented. So I think Myron gives interesting strategies, but what I don't think he can do justifiably is say this is a adequate long-term solution to the problem. It's not. It's more something that leads us to a stalemate, and both parties don't want to long-term invest into each other. And the problem society has right now is people are doing short-term, but we can't get them to do long-term family creation. So even by becoming top 5%, it doesn't guarantee a positive long-term family creation outcome. So that's the issue with the self-improvement mantra as the solution. It is not, it's a solution. If you do that, you will maximize short-term benefits from women. You will be able to attract them. You will be able to sleep with them. And you can do that for a long time. But what you still can't really do is invest into them long-term, especially if you are on the top like that, because you're in an incredibly vulnerable position. I myself, just as, a child support officer, this isn't popular, but the way my brain kind of changed working there is that I'm always just doing a cost benefit calculation in my mind, because I know how the laws are going to calculate, alimony and child support. And frankly, in my opinion, if a woman is going to be non-traditional in our relationship, then she has to buy her way into that. She has to make money. She has to contribute financially into the household. She has to put some money on the down payment of the house. She has to pay half the bills. And a lot of people don't like that. But if you are going to act non-traditionally and you want me to do a long-term thing with you, then you have to hold up that end of the deal. Otherwise, there is no deal. There is no, I pay for everything for you. And then that's that.
If Myron admits women live life on easy mode, why is he proposing that we place more burdens upon men?
I couldn't tell you why he says that, but I would guess it's because he knows that the traditional role of a man is to bear the brunt of a burden. However, traditionally, that's for one woman, your wife.
Not all women live on easy mode. Because they live on easy mode, they wouldn't be out here trying to get the top tier dude.
We see it today. Somebody can start an OF and simply put pictures of themselves up in a bikini and in 6 months quit their job. It is easy, and it's always going to be easy. And the only way that's ever going to change is if men stop doing what you're doing. Just stop caring about these women that do that. Just stop it.
Do you find it hypocritical how everyone from Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, Brian from whatever, have all profited from and promoted the incel problem of OnlyFans girls while claiming to be men's advocates.
It's definitely problematic in a lot of ways. You shouldn't be selling the cure if you're also the cause of the disease.
These red pill people are selling you a dream that you can be this big macho man and be the head honcho on campus or on whatever you are doing in life. They're trying to sell you that like you could be this big macho man that doesn't have to buy OnlyFans material, doesn't have to buy OnlyFans products. But guess what? They're talking to the same people, to the same incels.
I like to listen to Coach Greg. I think I mentioned that earlier, Coach Greg Adams. And if I remember correctly, he did a live stream he didn't name anybody, but mentioning this kind of format of shows. And a lot of OnlyFans girls will go on the show and that, they're part of the show, whatever. They discuss these things. The men kind of get on them a bit and grill them on there. But their OnlyFans subscribers go up because the same audience that's sending super chats, laughing at whatever, or Fresh and Fit, kind of dunking on these ladies, the same people from the same audience then go and sign up to their OnlyFans. And there is this kind of masturbatory, I guess, fulfillment or purpose. I don't want to use the word fulfillment, but it serves a masturbatory need because the viewer who's watching the show gets to vicariously see through the quote unquote high value man's lens as he kind of berates the OnlyFans women and puts them in their place, so to speak. But then at the same time, he gets an ego stroke from there. But then at the same time, he then signs up for their OnlyFans for the other masturbatory need. And it's kind of a strange thing to think about.
The difference between a tradcon, a red pillar, a MGTOW, and a men's rights advocate.
There are a lot of differences. I think it all comes down to branding.
MGTOW means men's going their own way, meaning men have found their own value and just and going through so much pain and hurt through their life. It's about their time for them to be alone for themselves. And then men advocates, definitely it's definitely in the same regard. They all mean the same thing, as far as like a man just going his own way.
He basically asks a question, and it's like these different groups that are kind of under the umbrella of the manosphere, but they're not exactly united. A tradcon is a traditional conservative. And to be honest, I kind of look at tradcons and conservatives as the original blue pill. Everybody talks about the red pill, but I think everybody forgot like what the blue pill was, right? Blue pill was the traditional societal mainstream conditioning. And it doesn't just apply to like a blue pill simp who's like pro-feminist as a man to try to be a nice guy. It also applies to tradcon men, right? Because they live in the kind of Disney fantasy of, being the prince that saves the princess. And a lot of these blue pill guys kind of end up as MGTOWs when it doesn't work out for them, because they go through the divorce and stuff like that. But I look at tradcons more so as the original blue pillars, honestly, even though tradcons do kind of watch manosphere stuff sometimes, especially in the beginning of this, before red pillars and tradcons started to go at it, Then there's the MRA guys, and MRAs are actual men's rights advocates. These guys aren't advocating for self-improvement or buying a Bugatti. They're looking at the laws since the rise of feminism and the changes in our society and culture, and they're saying, hey, these laws are unfair and they're biased against men. Things like paternity fraud or other stuff that men go through. And men's rights advocates have been trying to get that changed. Unfortunately, a lot of their efforts have fallen on deaf ears as the manosphere community has snowballed into this, whatever it's become now, which is this kind of like Andrew Tate style self-improvement guru, super motivated thing. But it's important to bring back in some of those elements, especially the MRAs, because there's no reason we can't be doing two things at once. There's no reason we can't have a strategy for how to deal with women today while also figuring out how are we going to do something to advocate for the laws being changed. And, you know, that brings us to this understanding of unity or lack thereof in the red pill, which is the real shame. It is a shame to see red pillars attacking each other and not being united. And it's actually kind of embarrassing because men pride themselves on their leadership ability. And I would say that true leadership, true masculinity, in fact, is about galvanizing and uniting men for a cause. True masculinity is not about trying to one-up each other and say, I made it, and pull up the ladder behind you or shame other guys. Masculinity has always been about leadership. And however that leader looks like, they can galvanize a group of people together to make some kind of change. And the fact that the manosphere has not been focused on doing that really does show an issue with that aspect of masculinity. And I would really, really love to see something like that. I would love to see men saying that we're boycotting the election in November. I want them to really put the fear into the tradcons, because in truth, the Conservative Party has taken the men vote for granted. And without our vote, their whole party stops, honestly. And even if men didn't vote for the other side, but we just sat out one election, and if we said the reason we're sitting this out is because you have no platform for family law reform, Trump is doing nothing for, you know, guys suffering from paternity fraud or getting screwed over in divorce, Trump is doing nothing to make the marriage contract look better, to make these things less biased against men, to help men who desperately want custody with their children but aren't getting it. And if we put that on the tradcons, none of the Daily Wire folks have been advocating for men in that way. And they kind of treat us like we're the sort of unwanted bastard child of their party. Unfortunately, the bastard child is getting older and they can't not acknowledge us anymore. But if we banded together like that and started a movement saying we will boycott the 2024, abstain 2024, I guarantee you, you know, Trump will come out and say, hey, I've always cared about family law reform. My team is putting together a platform right now. We're here for you guys. And then that would be what we need to hear. Now, if the folks on the other side, the progressive liberals, are smart, the Democrats, what they would do is they would see our infighting and they would say, well, hold on a second. Here's our platform for family law reform. And then we would be in this position to decide which one is better. However, in order for us to do that, it takes leadership. It takes guys from Fresh and Fit. It takes, you know, Rolo and all the people who are here supposedly advocating for men. And we need to reach an accord at least on this one thing, even if we continue to argue about other, in my opinion, lesser issues. And in that way, we can get them to take us seriously. Anyways, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. I also want to give another special thanks and shout out to JustPearlyThings for having me on her show. I had such a great time doing that. She gave me a sit-down interview where we got to talk about my, you know, experience working at a child support agency. And I also called into her live stream to discuss paternity laws, going back a long way, for about a half hour. So I'll put those links in the chat if you guys want to click on that and check them out. And I will see you guys on the next one.